everybody. This is Dave Greger, Mortiscult, guitar player, vocals. I guess the question is was there a plan B in my life? Was music first? Did I have some killer job? Was I a rocket scientist? And I was like, nah, I want to play death metal. The answer is pretty simple to that, and I was actually a United States Marine before I started playing music, or I'd say my interest in death metal or extreme music. I had always been a music lover, period. I grew up with a lot of the same people in my generation in the late 60s, early 70s, Styx, Foreigner, Journey. Alice Cooper was always a very big influence, and I think because he was such a big, he had that dark mystique to him, just like Sabbath did. So, Sabbath really drew me in as well. And I honestly fell into it. A friend of mine said, hey, let's get this Death Leprosy tape, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is something I think I could gravitate towards. But as far as me having another plan, my plan really was to be a career service or military person, to be honest with you. And I think the more that I spent time in the service or in the Marine Corps period, it just wasn't a life for me. I just was like, I don't know why I signed up for this. What was I thinking? What was going through my head? So, no, there was really not a plan B for me. Like a lot of other, musicians, I came out of service and, was looking for something to do, and, music was very fruitful at that time. So, death metal was still in its infancy. I know we were like a second-gen band, so to speak, with death metal. A lot of great bands, Death and Carcass and Pestilence and Bolt Thrower and, all these great bands all had like their first albums out or some kind of EP, depending on which band it was. And as we started doing our like first demo, like Slowly We Rot was out at that particular point. After we had cut a single for Earache, Death Human came out. We were like, whoa, this like totally blew our minds, So, there was definitely some cool shit happening. And, it was like one of those things, kind of like a Metallica situation where, it was like magic, It was like you did a demo and everybody bought it. Everybody came to your shows, It was a pretty magical time. I know I pursued some other careers after that. I've done a lot of different jobs. I was a mail courier, truck driver, not truck driver, but, route driver, warehouse guy. I've done a bunch of different jobs in my lifetime. It's like music seems to be the only thing that I kind of gravitate towards. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay the bills as well as I'd like it to. I wish the band was a little bit more popular, so to speak. Probably us going away for 10 or 15 years probably didn't help matters. But, it is what it is. But we're here. We have a brand new album out. Sorry, it's not brand new. We do have an album out last year, 2017, Peaceville Records, Wounds Deeper Than Time. So if you don't have a copy, please go and get a copy. Our previous re-releases, the first 3 albums are all reissued through Peaceville Records. The 4th album, Service, is reissued through Listowania or Dread Records. You can get that at the vinyl versions. And of course through us at any show. And then, like I said, Wounds Deeper Than Time is available right now through Peaceville still. So go get your copy. And I hope that answers your question. But there was no plan B. I didn't have any other schooling or anything like that behind me, unfortunately. So advice to all you musicians out there, get your secondary schooling or your secondary plan B, just in case, you can't make a living off of your art. So anyways, I appreciate your time, and like I said, your support is amazing, and we appreciate you. Brutally delicious, we appreciate you too. Have a good day. Bye.
Music was always my number one. Music was always my number one when it came to passion. It was never intended to be a career. So my number one for career was skateboarding and motocross, and then I had, I messed my back up really bad, and I just had to go elsewhere career-wise. I was sponsored, we were doing really well, and then I had to go somewhere else and do something else. And I still didn't even think about music as number one. So I went to art school and I did graphic design, and the day I graduated, I walked out. I remember my parents was like, "So you're gonna get a job?" I was like, "No, I'm going on tour." And I've been on tour ever since.
Were they supportive or hesitant?
No, they were supportive. They always said, like, as long as you have, whatever you want to do with your life, you can do it as long as you have education to fall back on. And so I did. And but I luckily never had to fall back on it.
I became a full-time musician and started pursuing music probably later than a lot of people do. It kind of happened briefly. I went to college, and my biggest interest in college was playing football. And whenever I stopped, I got involved carrying equipment and hanging out like near my friends' bands and stuff. And I was always very much into music. It has a profound influence on my life. I've been listening to, I could tell you all the words that Bruce Dickinson says in between every song in Live After Death, for example. Same thing with like Springsteen, Kiss. So I've always been a student of music. It just wasn't something that I pursued. And, sometime thereafter, I got involved being a front man in a punk band. I kind of had a knack for it. And from there, I started writing songs. I learned to play instruments, and I did it the punk rock way. Joined a band and then learned stuff. And, from that punk rock world, touring in a van, I, eventually came back to my roots, and, we make what we call, honky-tonk metal.
We were a pretty Plan B heavy band.
Yeah.
When we first started. We had several outs.
Yeah, we jumped out of the airplane with a chute strapped to the back and a chute strapped to the front.
And it tethered to the plane.
And we were just jumping 100 feet onto a giant trampoline.
Yeah, the plane hadn't taken off. This was from the top of the plane. Yeah.
It was a tall plane that we were jumping out the side of. We both always had other things we wanted to pursue, and now have failed to because of this stupid band.
And because of this, our Plan B that worked.
Well, I mean, we both have jobs, or we had jobs before this tour. I direct cartoons for a living. So I don't know if that's Plan B or Plan A, D, C. I mean, ultimately, I like to be creative and make things. So that's what I'm going to do with my life.
There was a Plan B. We started touring in 2001, and it kind of coincided with exactly when Ken and I graduated college. So he went for business, I went for journalism. So we both graduated in early June of 2001, and we were going to give it 1 year, see how we did, and if nothing came of it, do 1 year of fun. But the first year went by and things were looking up, so let's give 1 more year. And then that year was killing it, so let's give it 1 more year. And then we got signed to Metal Blade Records, and then it was like, okay, now we're all in. This is it. So now to go back to those degrees, we have to probably get some refreshers if this fell in his face, but we're still here. So
I was always all in from the beginning, but I did scaffold for 7 years from when I started the band to like 2010. So it was pretty rough, but it wasn't as bad as it sounds.